Hello again, everyone. Another video from a PayPal contribution. And remember, a contribution of any amount. If you want your story made into a video, you go right to the top of the list. Also, if you want to do a Skype video, and you make a contribution, you can do that as well. Hello, Ollie. I've been watching your channel for a while. Like your no-nonsense attitude towards abuse. It helped me protect myself by realizing that I was feeding the beast. Narcissists are indeed terminators. I'd like my story read and get some advice and perspective on it because I'm in the process of making sure there is a record of my story and what has happened to me. I come from a narcissistic family headed by a malignant narc. I grew up hating myself and was severely neglected. The only time my family interacted with me was to emotionally abuse me. Of course, they didn't see it this way. They saw their insults, cruelty, and violent behavior as being parents. And these narcissists that abuse as a way of trying to be funny at other people's expense, they are horrible. And then when you call them on it, it's like, oh, it's just a joke. It's just what families do. No, it's not just what families do. Every family jokes around, but there's a limit. The narcissist abuser does it repeatedly. And they do it so cruelly. And the more and the worse they make you feel, the bigger charge they get out of it. And you can see the pleasure that they get off of it. My father is one of these who, likes to think he's some kind of comedian, but he's only funny at the expense of others. Usually me and my mother, but and the crueler he got, the more people he got, to humiliate me in front of, the more satisfied he was with himself. When the effects of the abuse became apparent, immediately and in the long run, it was because I was inherently defective or smoked marijuana. Oh, marijuana. You know, with the condition that the country's in right now in regards of marijuana legalization, where more and more states are legalizing it medically or just going full on legalization, it's taking away a tool a lot of narcissists use, in that if God forbid you've smoked marijuana or do smoke marijuana, they think it's like the ultimate weapon. Why? Because it was illegal federally for so long, and it still is, but the states are are making their own laws and regulating. So it's taking away this whole stigma and this club they have to abuse you with. And especially, and I don't think kids should be smoking marijuana because it has different effects on a younger brain as it's developing, that I think can have some permanent effects on personality and cognitive brain skills. Okay, but it's still not as bad as alcohol and other things. And to me, when parents do that, they blow it out of proportion, especially narcissists, where they'll try to use it against you for the rest of your life. What it actually will do at that point, I find, is it'll drive teenagers who have smoked it and gotten caught, and the parents who make a big deal of it, to harder drugs. Because they've made such a big deal over this, okay? And they make it into such an issue. And anybody who's smoked it knows the effects of it, where it's not this detrimental, dangerous thing, and they're blowing it so out of proportion. Okay, well, you know what they're saying isn't true about it. So then you'll be more susceptible to turn to a harder drug, because then you're gonna be like, well, if they're gonna blow this up about marijuana, well then I guess coke isn't that bad, or I guess crack isn't that bad, or I guess meth isn't that bad, or boozing isn't that bad because booze is legal, or prescription drugs isn't that bad because you can get it with a prescription. And to me, that leads to a lot bigger problems. Okay, instead of if you just dealt with the marijuana issue honestly. But it isn't even about the marijuana. It is about the narcissist being able to use whatever they can against you in order to gain control over you and to gain what they want from you. When I was a teenager, they forced me to work in a meth-riddled store where every employee was a crystal meth dealer. They owned the building. I guess his parents owned the building. They made sure I couldn't choose my own friends. Another typical tactic of the narc, where they try to control who you have in your life. I looked up to these older crackheads because I had seen them since I was a boy, and they were cooler than me. This began the start of a meth addiction between the ages of 15 and 21. I am now 27 and eat pot for pain. And as I said earlier, if your parents hadn't blown the marijuana thing so out of proportion, you probably wouldn't have been as susceptible to falling into a methamphetamine addiction at 15 years old. But note, even though you had a meth addiction for 7 years, for 6 or 7 years, they still want to blame it on the marijuana. Why? Because they owned the building and they probably knew there were a bunch of meth heads in there, and they wanted you to get addicted on meth. That way they could always be looking down their nose at you. It's just a control. It's an emotional control. And they'd rather you be a meth head that they can look down on than, God forbid, a pothead that maybe can succeed and survive in this world. They will always label me as a mentally ill drug addict whenever I stand up to their abuse, right? Which is why they did it, which is why they drove you to that to begin with, so they could always use it as a weapon against you. Oh, well, you're a meth head. You started smoking weed at 14, 15. It's ridiculous. It's nothing more than a planned excuse. Never once did anyone in my family accept any responsibility for their criminal and abusive behaviors. It was all my fault. I was the scapegoat. I know what I've done is wrong, but I am not going to get held on trial by what is basically a sociopath that thinks they're awesome. Everyone makes mistakes. Insanity is repeating them and expecting different results. And here's another mistake you're making about the narcissist sociopath, that they think they're awesome. They don't think they're awesome. If they really believe, they hate themselves because they know they're garbage. That's why they need to abuse you and make you look like you are such a problem, that you're a drug addict that needs to have that so they can look down on you. Because they know they put out the persona that they think they're awesome, and they put out the persona that they are awesome, but they know they're not. That's why they got to work so hard to put you down, because as long as you have problems, okay, that they could say, you're breaking the law by doing this, okay, they never have to look in the mirror at themselves. And they never have to accept responsibility for doing what they did to you, because they are directly responsible. My father would tap the phones and spy through the computers. My mother got some sick satisfaction out of enabling him torture me. The level of depravity, lies, bullying, and scapegoating is disgusting and unforgivable. They took my dignity and enjoyed doing it. My mother has a conscience, maybe, albeit a small and self-interested one. My father is a black hole of sickness. Why would my mother enable that abuse if she wasn't narcissistic borderline? She is narcissistic borderline, okay? Your mother's a covert narcissist, okay? You're calling her enabling him, but she's really not enabling your father. What she's doing is playing your father, pulling his strings to get him all torqued up to abuse you, and then she gets her sick satisfaction watching it happen. A, watching you get abused, and B, manipulating your father in order to abuse her. All the meanwhile, she could sit back and act like she's somehow a victim in this. This is the game my father plays. Because for years, I thought my father was, just putting up with my crazy mother, until I realized he was the man behind the curtain controlling it all. And then everybody would be like, oh, poor Brian, he has to deal with this crazy wife, and how does he do it? He does it because he knows he's garbage, okay? And he needs the positive attention and the compliments and all that. He needs it. He needs like oxygen to him. Okay, people thinking how great he is and how much he sacrifices. No, see, he needs my mother, like your mother needs your father, to do all this, you know, overtly aggressive, narcissistic behavior. Okay, so nobody ever has to, everybody focuses on that, and nobody ever has to get to know the real them. Because the real them is they are awful, manipulative people who, if they didn't have this interference being run in the form of an overt narcissist, people would know that they were friggin' garbage and stay away from them. Okay, your mother has the need to abuse you, but doesn't have the balls to actually do it herself. She'd rather manipulate your father in order to do it. I remained in my family because I was physically weak, scared, and the financial crisis was raging. They have money. I accepted money for education and am receiving a free education to move on to be a CPA and have independence in my life. It hasn't been worth it. It may be in the future. I am disabled without getting disability at this point. I was forced to injure myself working for my father and couldn't get medical treatment for several years until I went on Medicaid. By then, the injury had progressed, and now I am in a struggle to have healthy, functioning joints and a life. Well, if your parents are paying for this education, okay, that doesn't seem like you want anyway, they are only doing that to hold it over your head, regardless. Regardless, you are never going to be happy doing the CPA thing. It's probably never going to be worth it to you. Being that you're forced to do it now because you hurt yourself working for your father, who wouldn't even get you proper medical attention for years until you had to go on Medicaid yourself, to the point now where you're basically disabled. It's never going to work out for you like that. You're going to just hate it, and you're going to continue to flounder. Unfortunately, I was living with my family when I was injured moving their properties. I should have sued, but I would have lost. They got away with victimizing me. Then they told everyone I was mentally ill. I was and am recovering, but it was from their abuse. You know, and be careful with labeling yourself mentally ill, because that's probably what they've been telling you your whole life, that you're mentally ill. I mean, that's another common tactic of the narcissistic abuser, is once they can get you labeled as mentally ill or get you thrown or confined for any period of time, then that negates everything. That negates everything you've ever done in your life. Anything you ever done, anything you say from there on, oh, well, you know, he's just mentally crazy. He's just nuts. He's just crazy. And that's why they do it. And they've been telling you to the point now that you're repeating, yeah, I had mentally. You don't have mental issues. You were abused. There's a difference between being mentally ill and having issues from abuse. That's not mental illness. That is frustration over not being able to verbalize the abuse you went through, and not being able to get anybody to understand what you've gone through. Stop calling yourself mentally ill. I don't think you're mentally ill. I am now doing everything in my power to get myself out of this. I am still dependent on these people. They will never change. I am taking their money because it is what is owed to me after they tried to bully and victimize me to death. However, I am by no means obligated to take the abuse till the day they die. No, you're not. They took it too far. I want and deserve to have people who victimized and tortured me out of my life. I may end up having to go on disability, and I am too physically damaged to become homeless. This has become the extended version of Narc Wars. My father will not stop trying to bully and harm me. He won't stop trying to set up situations to harm me. I want a new life away from this never-ending nightmare. The big challenge is fixing my physical and mental health to get out of the situation when it was constantly being assaulted. It's caused too much harm and a line has been crossed. I hope to be moving forward in a permanent way this next year. My father is going to be setting up situations to try to derail me. They always do. It is bizarre to give with one hand and abuse with the other. I guess there is guilt and shame. I guess it is there to guilt and shame me to allow the abuse to break me. Very precarious. Advice? Thanks. Yeah, just because your father's giving you money doesn't mean he's not trying to friggin' destroy you and derail you. He probably wants to keep you there just so he can continue to abuse you. He doesn't want you to actually get out on your own. Okay, because once you get out on your own, then you might be able to convince some people that you're not mentally ill, you're not crazy, you're not just some drug addict, okay, and being able to shine a light on their own abuse. And that's what they're terrified of. And you're taking their money to go to school. If you don't want to be a CPA and it's not going to work, don't. If you're already talking about going on disability and you're already on Medicaid, I would give you two options. One, I would advise you two different ways here. You should look into getting a disability attorney. I mean, they're all over TV during daytime about getting on disability. Now, the way disability works, it seems like they reject you for a while until you get a lawyer, and then the lawyer goes, and then after 2-3 years, they finally approve you and you get all that back money back. The nice thing about, I think, disability attorneys is if you have a pattern of a medical history where you can't work, okay, they'll usually take your case on a contingency basis because you are going to get that lump payout once your case is approved because it starts from the day you filed. So that might be your best option as far as disability goes, and that way you have a lawyer who you can at least tell what kind of situation you're in. You're stuck in it. It's confidential between you and the lawyer. Your parents never have to find out about that. So if you can figure out a way to stay there without doing the CPA thing, or even if you still have to just take the classes to take them until your disability case settles and you finally get set forward with disability, then do that, because you are on Medicaid, so you basically got one foot through the disability door anyway. Now, my alternative piece of advice to you, based on where you live, it is in fact as well. Now, you're what I would call a medical marijuana patient, even though the state you live in, it's legalized now, and you're eating, medical edibles for pain now, so you do have an understanding of this, okay? And there's a lot of studies now where medical marijuana is being used for drug abuse counseling, drug abuse recovery, the different strains of it, depending on the THC count, the cannabinoid count, even the stuff like Charlotte's Web that doesn't have THC, it has more of the CBDs in it and the oils. I would suggest, if you want to work and try to do something, which kind of goes into like what I tell the artists as well, is use what you know, use what you understand. Trying to get a job maybe in that industry, in a dispensary, something like that. If you're taking CPA classes as it is, you obviously are a bright guy and able to understand some sort of business concepts. And if this is something that is helping you for pain and you're using for pain, you probably do have a legitimate knowledge of it at this point, where you could probably help other people and you could be an asset in a medical dispensary, or even in a legal dispensary. I don't know, I'm not even sure what they call the legal dispensaries. And in your state where it's full legalization, now's the time to get into something like that. And I'm telling you, it would drive your parents crazy, because it would give you the opportunity to turn what they used against you against them and to become a success at it legally. and prove them wrong from when they made it such an issue years ago with you and basically drove you to hang out with a bunch of freaking meth heads. Okay, the irony of that is amazing. So that is something that if I were you, I would look into. I would see because there's even job posting websites now for in the medical marijuana industry and the marijuana industry. You should see what's out there because it's something you use for medical purposes, and you might actually enjoy it because you understand what the benefits are and you could actually help other people. So I don't know how big of an option that is for you. I'm not sure the extent of your disability other than it's joint pain, but I don't think it's a very labor intensive type of job working in a dispensary. But you can even get into the marketing of it, the accounting of it, become a cultivator grower of it as well. It's something that you might want to consider because it's something you already know, and it's also something that had been used against you for so long that to this day that they still use it against you, that you can now turn it into a positive and turn your life around, making a legitimate career out of it if it's possible. If that's what you want to do, and if you think that would be a viable option for you, something I think you should look into. I also think you should look into going on the permanent disability, trying to hire a contingency disability attorney because most of them you don't have to give them a cent until your case settles. Okay, so if you're unable to work because of all this pain and you know I don't know if you have a therapist as far as having the PTSD or even the mental issues that they claim you have, whatever it is, it's all stuff that would go towards your disability case. Okay, so at least then you'll be able to get some kind of financial security and get independence from your abusers. So, that's really the best because I looked at this yesterday and I started making a video and then I really had to stop and think about it and think about what your best course of action here was on this one. And that's really the two issues. Once I thought about it for a while and, boom, there. That's really what I kind of see because your best options, in my opinion, based on your story. Because you got to use what you know, first of all, and what I think would make you happy. And I don't know if a job in the medical marijuana field would make you happy or not. That's something for you to decide. But based on your history, I think it's definitely an option for you. And being that you're somebody near disabled who needs medical edibles for pain relief, for mobility, for whatever you're using it for, that's experience that the medical marijuana dispensaries and the industry needs, because you need to be able to be educated for when these patients come in seeking pain relief, seeking anxiety relief, seeking PTSD relief, back pain, whatever the issue is, cancer relief, nausea relief, appetite, to increase appetite, or insomnia, or migraines, or whatever it is. Okay, you already have a basis in it. And being that your parents tried to use it against you, it would be such poetic justice if you were able to turn that into a life for yourself. Or, I would also explore the disability route. So, again, thank you for your contribution. It definitely helps. I know money's obviously tough to come by, so I really do for you. So I really do appreciate it. And thank you for everybody else who's watched. And believe it or not, there is more of you out there who use medical marijuana, to help with their issues. And I talk to so many of you, and I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised because I've kind of avoided it, for 226 videos. because it is still a taboo topic. Legalization of marijuana, medical marijuana, whatever it is. But I will tell everybody this. If not for medical marijuana, this channel wouldn't exist. And I'm going to leave it at that. And that's just the fact of the matter. And I only turned to it at 2 doctors' suggestion, my general practitioner and my therapist. And that was when I was 35 years old. Before that, I'd never even touched anything. And, you know, if you want a more in-depth on that, please leave that in the comments section as well, because I do realize it is a taboo subject, and, you know, there are strong feelings both ways on it. But, you know, I'm somebody who researches everything. You know, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to understand it in backwards and forwards. And to me, it's a legitimate medicine. It just is. So please leave your comments in the comments thread below. Any other suggestions you can give this person would be appreciated. Anything you think I might have missed, because I understand what he's going through. You know, with the pain, and he's kind of stuck now, and he doesn't know where to go. And like this channel, you know, not being able to find like a steady job, like a job to be hired in, where, you know, you're getting a steady paycheck, or at some point you got to turn to what you know and what you understand, and be able to use it to your advantage, which is kind of which is exactly what I'm doing here. Because you got to reinvent yourself, and you got to, and luckily he's in a state where it's full legalization. So the taboo for where he's at, this could be something that could help him. Thank you everybody who's watched, and again, if you do enjoy this channel, please consider making a contribution to the PayPal link in the description box and below. And remember, a contribution of any amount, and you want your story made into a video, you go right to the top of the list. Also, with a contribution, we could do a Skype video as well, where we could both be on camera, post it up, and I think that would be almost like a live podcast radio show, you know, or we could just do a phone call like I've done before. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again soon.